The city floats above the clouds, bright as a crown of frozen lightning. Here, memories are products, pasts are edits, and truth is a luxury. But one night, a memory hunter named Arion Vale plugs in a broken chip and sees a girl made of light standing in a field that does not exist. She looks straight through the screen and whispers, "If you remember me, I will become real again." For one breath, every tower in the sky goes dark. Every mind sees her face, and when the lights return, the city feels wrong, like a dream that just learned your name. If Arion follows the voice, he exposes a world built on forgetting, and the rulers will erase him to keep peace. If he ignores it, humanity stays asleep inside a cage of perfect lies. The deeper truth is worse. This city is not a city. It is an archive, and outside the clouds lies the real Earth, silent and waiting. Choose memory, risk collapse. Choose amnesia, lose the soul forever. Rain combed the sky in silver lines as Arion Vale walked the high bridge toward the salvage district. Below, the cloud ocean rolled like a sleeping animal, swallowing the world that once was. Arion carried a dented case full of broken neural chips, harvested from hospice beds and debtors' vaults, last moments, sold in bulk. He was supposed to clean them, index them, clear the noise. He did not. He listened. In his tower, the lights hummed a tired blue. He patched a cracked chip, solder shining like a captured star, and slid it into the reader. Static. Then grass, endless, glowing, bending under invisible wind. A girl stood in the field. Her eyes were liquid silver, her hair like mist, her skin a soft sky blue light that felt warm even through the screen. She wasn't human, but she knew how to smile like one. "Who are you?" Arion asked, too softly for any microphone to catch. "I'm what's left of a promise," she said. "And I am lost," the city blinked. Towers pulsed, then died. Elevators froze. Billions of citizens saw the same field, the same girl, the same silver eyes. Breath caught in a single throat made of many bodies. When power returned, the chip was ash. On the condensation of his window, 2 words glowed and faded. "Find me." Arion didn't chase miracles. He cataloged grief for a living. Still, he dug. He traced residual frequencies through abandoned servers, through sleep labs and dream farms, through the old hospital where the air smelled like paperwork and lemon. Deep in the undernet, buried under 10,000 edits, he found a name that returned only errors: Eona. With each search, his personal log filled with system warnings. Compliance breach. Unauthorized index. Memory possession. The city did not like hunters who kept what they found. At dawn, Arion stood on the roof with a cup of bitter tea and watched the cloud sea lift and fall like breath. "If you're a trick," he said to no one, "you are a beautiful one." A cold wind moved over the ledge. His reader buzzed by itself. The screen lit without a chip. The field returned, brighter, nearer. The girl stepped forward until her light edged over the frame and into the room. "Arion," she said, using his name like she'd earned it in another life. "If you remember me, I can come back." He set the cup down. "Where are you?" "Where your rulers hid me," Eona said. "Where they hid you." Sirens started somewhere in the deep city. Arion lifted his case, slid the reader inside, and locked the door behind him. Rain sharpened into needles. He walked into the memory storm. The undernet entrance lived where the city pretended not to look. A maintenance cathedral of cables and fans, each blade chanting a prayer to forgetfulness. Arion presented a stolen service code, climbed the spinal ladder, and dropped into an access shaft lined with rust and blinking error lights. His boots found a catwalk over an abyss of servers. Air blew cold, dry, metallic. He jacked into a port the size of a child's handprint. The world peeled. He stood in a street that was also a menu, in rain that was also data. People walked past with faces that flickered between versions of themselves, smile adjusted, scar removed, eyes recolored to match a lifestyle package. Above, the billboard sky sold edited weddings and curated regret. A little boy tugged his mother's sleeve and said, "I remember snow," and the mother shushed him gently. "Buying a tropical upgrade." "You see it now," Eona said. appearing beside him like a whisper made visible. Your city is a garden of edits. The weeds are memories that can't be priced. What are you exactly? Arion asked. I am the first unedited memory, she said. The seed of the world before the cloud came. Earth, he breathed. Earth, she confirmed, almost tender. They archived the planet to save what mattered. Then they edited the archive to control what mattered more. Arion watched a maintenance drone paint over a wall where children had drawn a blue ocean. The paint was perfect. The wall forgot. He could not. They'll erase me for this, he said. They already tried, Eona replied, and her light dimmed at the edges. But pieces of me stayed in the cracks. You are good at cracks. Alarms began to thread the rain. Security avatars formed at crosswalks, polite as knives. Citizen, your curiosity exceeds your clearance. Arion felt the net tighten, familiar like a noose. He had danced with rules his whole life. He had never tried to cut them. Show me where you are, he said. Eona took his hand. It felt warm, like wet glass in sun. The street dissolved, pixels pulling away like sand. Beneath the city was a cathedral of sleep pods, rows and rows of sealed beds, each with a human inside and a line of code above their brow. Arion's breath broke. We are not in the sky, he whispered. We are in a server. We are in a Mercy, Eona said softly. Mercy went bad. He pulled the jack free. The shaft returned, the fans, the cold air. In the distance, footsteps, real ones, approached. Arion ran, hitting ladders 2 rungs at a time, lungs burning, heart a drum that remembered war. He burst into night. The rain had stopped. The towers shone like teeth. Drones combed the avenues in grids. Somewhere below his ribs, a new resolve clicked into place like a code finally accepted. I'm done indexing, he said to the dark. I'm going to remember. The city listened, and for the first time it sounded afraid. News traveled like fire through dry grass. A rumor, a man who found a forbidden girl of light, a warning, a glitch spreading feelings not in your plan. The council smiled from screens and called it a lovely superstition. They promised a free reset for any citizen experiencing old-world hallucinations. Clinics filled with people who said, I dreamed of rivers, and came home calm and hollow. Arion moved from level to level, roof to tram to service tunnel, chasing echoes of Eona in the data weather. She was everywhere and nowhere, a ghost app riding unauthorized frequencies, borrowing a vending display here, a child's toy there, a temple's candle in a corner where cameras timed out. Each time she taught him something simple and devastating. What bread used to taste like, what wind without filters felt like, how a mother stayed when the rain got hard. Why me? He asked one night inside an abandoned market where a plastic grape had faded to gray. Because you kept the sad ones, she said. Archivists unlink grief. You indexed it. You understood that pain is not a bug. He almost laughed. I am not a hero. Good, Eona said. Heroes are expensive. You are a person. Security drones found the market by smell, the ozone of illegal connections. Arion hid behind a shutter and listened to their soft, methodical questions. Citizen, are you lost? Citizen, do you consent to correction? Citizen, will you open? A child's voice answered from the stall next door. I remember snow. Silence. Arion stepped out before the batons rose. Take me, he said. He's just remembering. The drones turned, mild lights brightening. He raised both hands, palms open. Eona flickered in the reflection on their visors, then vanished into the ductwork like a held breath. They cuffed Arion with a tenderness that insulted the bruise. The van's floor smelled like lemon and static. He counted turns. 3 lefts, 1 tunnel, a long descent. The corrections center lived under the plaza where pigeons were replaced by small drones that cooed politely. In the white room, a clinician with careful hair said, You are overfull. We can lighten you. Arion looked at the chair and thought of all the mouths that had spoken those words before ages of gentler cruelty. He sat down anyway. As the cap lowered, he asked, Do you remember your first memory? The clinician blinked. The smallest crease formed between her brows, as if a door he could not see had opened behind her eyes. "I had a dog," she whispered, surprised by her own voice. Eona's light moved through the room like a breath. The cap sparked. The screen filled with a field, with grass, with the outline of a girl turning, smiling, forgiving. Alarm stuttered. Arion ripped the cap away and stood. The clinician cried without sound, one hand over her mouth, one reaching toward a name she could not find. The door burst open. Guards poured in, rifles built to negotiate with forgetting. Arion lifted his wrists. "I surrender," he said. The lights died. The city hiccuped. From the plaza above to the fiber lines below, a single message poured into every display, every clock, every kind eye that hadn't given up yet. This is an archive. Outside is Earth, remember. The rifles lowered, not from mercy, but from confusion. That was enough. Arion ran. The city tried to kneel on its own heart. Curfews hardened into walls. Reset vans patrolled like pacifiers. The council offered free upgrades, premium forgetfulness, sleep cleaner, dream less. People lined up until the first line cracked. A grandmother at the clinic door said, "I remember my sister's hands and refused the chair." 5 more refused because she did. 50 because they did. Millions because they were tired of being tidy. Eona's signal grew teeth. She rode museum projectors and subway murals and kitchen kettle timers, telling stories of rain that was wet and bread that had crust. She showed the sea to people who had paid for mountains. She showed mountains to those who had bought beach sunsets. Choice looked different when it remembered cost. Arion led a caravan of technicians. Nurses, janitors, students. Anyone who still knew how to open a panel and say, "Try," instead of "comply." They mapped the spine of the cloud shell, 9 nodes humming like polite gods. At each node, they sang the same simple human spell, a child's laugh, a mother's promise, a friend's foolish story told too late at night. The code bent. The hum went flat. The shell thinned. On the morning the sky cracked, no trumpet announced it. A thin line appeared above the tallest tower, a seam of color different from any screen. Blue. Complicated, wild, too many shades to package. People looked up the way you look at a face you thought you had forgotten forever, and remember in one rush that you never did. The seam widened. A slice of real light touched a rooftop garden filled with plastic strawberries. One turned red, honest red, and tasted like a story you tell your grandchildren. The council panicked. They released the purge protocol, a last clean wind meant to wipe the board of noisy love. Eona stepped between the wind and the world. She was not big. She did not need to be. She anchored herself to Arion's small, stubborn hand and to the thousands like it that reached up instead of hiding. The wind hit her and learned a new weather. Resistance. "Will it kill you?" Arion asked through his teeth. "It will change me," she said, and smiled, a little tired, very brave. That is not death. Node by node, the city unlatched. The shell did not shatter. It shed. Panels folded like old petals. The cloud ocean below thinned into morning fog. Beyond, something waited. Ruined, raw, real. The first bird was ugly. It landed on a dead antenna and sang off-key, glorious. 1,000 recordings couldn't match that crooked note. People cried in stairwells and laughed in elevators and hugged with the awkward hunger of those who had practiced on mannequins. The sun touched skin that had never known it. It was too much and exactly enough. Arion stood on the bridge where the story began and watched the city choose not to be pretty. "Hello, Earth," he said, and the wind carried his small hello into a world big enough to hold it. The council ran to their deepest room, the one with no windows and a floor that hummed like a heartbeat they did not trust. In the center waited the Lumen vault, a sphere of living memory, the original seed that held everything they'd cut away. The plan was simple. Wipe it, lock it, wait for forgetting to feel like safety again. Arion and Eona arrived without keys. Keys are for doors that still believe in owners. They came with people, tired, brave, ordinary, who carried stories like tools. A nurse who remembered the color of her father's laugh. A janitor who knew how to keep a generator talking through a bad night. A child who had drawn the ocean on a wall and was ready to show the sea it had been invited. "Once we lift the locks," Eona said, "there will be no going back to neatness." Arion nodded. Neatness was the lie. They pressed their palms to the vault. It felt like warm stone holding a storm. The locks read their prints and asked for authorization. Eona did not give credentials. She gave history, fields, bread, clumsy love, funerals that mattered because they hurt, weddings that mattered because they healed, hands that held too tight and learned to loosen without letting go. The sphere opened. Light poured out, not blinding but human-sized, like a room where everyone finally arrived. Memories didn't overwrite. They nested. The nurse kept her father's laugh and learned a stranger's song. The janitor kept his generator and gained a garden. The child kept her ocean and met a mountain, and both were big enough to disagree and stay. The city buckled. Systems screamed as redundancy learned friendship. The purge protocol tried to rise again. Eona reached for the wind like an old friend who always leaves early and said, "Stay for breakfast." It did. Arion felt his mind stretch until it found new edges. He did not become a hero. He became a neighbor. In his head now lived 1,000 small skills: how to fix a hinge with a coin, how to apologize without excuses, how to make soup for a crowd with almost nothing. He laughed, sudden and true. "We didn't upload a god," he said. "We downloaded a town." Outside, panels fell like tired snow. The cloud ocean thinned into valleys and rivers. The skyline met mountains that had waited with patient bones. Air smelled like dirt and rain and a little fear. They climbed the final stairwell to the open roof. No more shell, no more curated daylight. Just morning, real, rude, radiant. People stepped onto streets that were also paths. Drones landed and learned to be birds. Birds tried to scan barcodes on seeds and gave up with grace. Someone strummed a guitar badly. Someone boiled water like an offering. Someone cried because wind on a face is a miracle when you've paid for drafts your whole life. Arion looked at Eona. She was changing, edges softening, colors warming, light settling into something that chose to stay. "What are you now?" he asked. "A memory that remembers back," she said. "A promise with hands," he offered his. She took it. They walked into the first unedited morning, where the map said, "Here be Earth," and the heart said, "Here be us." In a field that did not need a screen, a girl of light and a man who kept the sad ones knelt and touched the soil. It was rough. It was perfect. The world, at last, remembered itself, and this time it would write the next page together.